All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of We Create Music. I am your host, B. Vaughn, and today we have an amazing guest, artist, producer, Anatome.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you.
Pleasure having you on the show.
For sure, glad to be here. I was definitely glad when you just reached out and asked me to come through. So here we are.
Yes, sir. So if you wouldn't mind, just start us off by telling your story.
So I'm a musician first. So I grew up playing salsa, mambo, Afro-Cuban jazz. I'm second generation from Puerto Rico here in the States. So a lot of my family had grown up playing salsa music.
Okay.
So it goes pretty hand in hand with our culture on the island. So I learned from my pops. He started gigging and performing when he was about 13. He carried on tradition, and he taught me when I was about 10 years old. So first time I actually got to do a show or a gig as a percussionist was about 10. So that's actually how I got my first start. And it wasn't until I want to say after I graduated high school, I started getting into MCing, writing, rapping, and everything. And it wasn't until I started, I guess, working with a crew of people, that I was with, that they're like, hey, you're a musician, you're a percussionist, you get in the drums, why not try your hand at producing? So from there, my first, I guess you could say, hardware or piece of equipment was a Roland XP80. So for anybody who's familiar out there, so that's back in the floppy-disk era. So yeah, that was my first time working with a workstation. And from there, kind of took a life of its own. Obviously, when software started becoming, I guess, the go-to, got into Reason.
Reason.
See, I appreciate that because not everybody's some people Reason.
Reason.
Right. But then I also been getting into Ableton.
Okay.
Obviously, tried my hand at just doing different things, whether it be with Logic or Pro Tools. Did mess with FL for a while as well, so just the DAW life, as some would say. But yeah, so that's kind of where I guess you could say got started into production as well. That had to be maybe 2003.
Okay.
Was probably when I started getting into production more so. And as far as living here in Georgia. So I'm originally from Lorain, Ohio. Okay. Which is near Cleveland, it's 20 minutes west of Cleveland. I moved here in about around 2013, September 2013. And so my introduction to the community here in terms of just getting connected with other producers, songwriters, artists was actually through iStandard. So shout out to iStandard, Hatch, Sis, Don. They're the ones that kind of plugged me into the community here. So whether people were just starting off, whether people have been seasoned producers, singers, songwriters, artists, the community out here has been really tight knit. So it's even if nobody knew anything of my credentials or anything that I've done, the love was the same. The support was the same. It's been the same. So yeah, it's been a great journey so far.
It sounds like it. Yeah. But yeah, shout out to iStandard. Excuse me, I got involved with iStandard 2013, around there somewhere.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
2013, probably 2014, when we were in St. Louis. And it's been a journey with them as well. So it's nothing but love. So I definitely appreciate the love that iStandard shows in the community of producers that they have created. And so when you go to a city, they are welcome. I remember I was it the last beat camp? It was the last beat camp, the one that was here.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm standing in line, and Hatch is passing out plates for the pizza, right? And I love that because Hatch, as one of the co-founders of the organization, is the one passing out plates and serving the producer community. So I appreciated that for one. The second thing was when he got to me, he was he handed me the plate and he looked up and he was like, man, I was like, oh, that's, and so it just feels good to be welcomed into that type of family.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I feel like as long as I've known them since like 2010. My first experience with iStandard, I went to a showcase with a buddy of mine. His name is Be Ready. He was the one that kind of like introduced me to them, and it was in Philly. So it was at the club Fluid. If anybody who's familiar, when that was still open, I think it's been closed for a while, or probably under new management. But 2010. It was wild. Like that was kind of like my first introduction to, seeing just how the community works. So I mean, you seen known people, you seen artists, in the spot. That was I think the first time I'd seen like Ill Mind. So that was the first time like I seen him. He was judging the event along with a couple other people, and it was just a very electric, type of environment, and I guess the point that I wanted to make was from what you had said, just the familial aspect,
right?
Or feeling like family. Like as long as I've been around them, it's always been like a family thing. I consider them brothers, and anytime they've looked out for, I don't even want to say the producer community alone. I feel like just the industry. They carry on a tradition that you don't, I guess, often experience. So everybody. How would Hatch put it? Hatch would put it on like everybody's a superstar. That's what he was saying.
Yeah, everybody's a superstar.
Everybody's a superstar.
Leave your ego at the door.
Exactly.
You got an ego.
Right. Leave it at the door. If you can't, just you're gonna have to bounce.
That's right. You gotta bounce.
But it's always been about family, and I feel like any opportunity that I have had, a lot of it correlated with just being directly connected with them, and I would say just that attitude carrying over. So even if there aren't any like events that they might throw, so many of us still share the same sentiments as creators that we can still carry on like that type of attitude, that type of heart, always welcoming, looking to elevate, looking to elevate those around us, and not so much just looking at what we could get out of, the situation. So that's been one of the bigger parts of my experience living here in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah. And because Atlanta is so full of musicians and creatives that it's good to find, for people who move here, it's good to find that they can insert themselves into that type of environment where it feels like family.
Yeah.
Right? Because some places you may go and you want to insert yourself, but it's like, well, we don't really know you, so...
Yeah. And I mean, that's a great point, because I've lived in other cities, and you would think it'd be somewhat different just because being here in Atlanta, like I know this is the biggest city that I've lived in, and sometimes
me too.
you would think that in terms of like exclusivity, like people would be like excluded from being a part of certain things, but again, like I think that's one of the things that that's a great tell like of the city. It's like if you're known, if you're not known, if you got a lot of time under your belt doing what you love to do. And I mean, it's in like I guess like a plethora of different like things that people get into. So somebody's into music, somebody's into film, somebody's into art, cuisine. Like it's the same vibe everywhere, So that's another thing that I've appreciated being here, because I have lived in other cities where it took a while, where even if I had like the skill or the talent, or even if I might have known a couple people, still. It would take time to kind of like get into, I don't necessarily want to say just like the scene, but maybe some circles who are kind of like gatekeepers or control certain things, certain aspects of whatever the scene like has to offer. But here, like I haven't dealt with that at all. Like really, it's like you show up as one person vouches for you, like, hey, such and such is with me, or hey, this is, this is Anatome, he's a percussionist, so on and so forth. Like, all it takes is the introduction, and from there it just carries on. So I'm like, man, it's pretty painless.
So why do you think that is? Why do you think it happens so easily and so, everyone's so, arm stretching out to others, but in other cities you may go to, it kind of takes a while to kind of get into that realm of the music community?
So I've had this discussion with people before. I'm sure it's a couple of things that I could like think of, and I'm sure I'll probably miss some other like nuances that like make it so great. But I would say one, people always talk about the hospitality here in Atlanta. I feel like that's a true point. You know, that does carry over. Where I guess in some cities, like maybe the culture is just different. You know. So that could be like from a general perspective, but also I know for me, being one that's like not originally from Atlanta, I feel like, and a lot of people who do live here always tell me like, you know, a lot of things blew up like after, or no pun intended at all. I'm so sorry for saying it like that, but the Olympics, if it weren't for the Olympics, you know, things wouldn't have taken off, you know, the way they did. And I feel like with that, there's been a lot of influx and a lot of like just transplant, you know, people like come from different states, different cities, different countries. And I feel like that could be another thing. Because I mean, one thing that I know I share with others that are from different places is, you know, you come in, you're brand new.
Right.
You don't know a whole lot. You want to be respectable. You want to be cordial. And, you know, you're not trying to step on toes. It's like, hey, I'm somewhat the outsider. I'm trying to get used to seeing like how you all move here and what, you know, like how I have to, I don't know, like follow through accordingly with just following up with people.
Right.
And so like the majority of the people that I've met since I've been here are not from here. So everybody's from a different corner of the US or the world even. And I feel like because like everybody's already kind of like in an open-hearted tone where it's like, hey, I'm not from here, you're not from here, we all here for the same reasons. How can we work together? You know, how can we build together? And I know, I just feel like there's just a lot of like-minded people, you know, in my opinion. So even with me doing what I do, typically I've been in places where, or rather other cities, and I mean, don't get me wrong, like me being from the Midwest, I mean, there is a sense of camaraderie,
Right.
but there's still that sense of like, hey, we're comrades because we in our same circle. If it's somebody who's not us, we not giving them love like that, you know. Sometimes, not everybody, but here it's like I could fit being myself.
Right.
I could fit being myself. I don't have to act like somebody I'm not. I don't have to put a front on just to get a foot in the door. You know, just me being me is an asset in itself.
That's
you
right.
know, and I don't have to like overextend myself to impress. So if I'm in a room or I'm doing something with people, like another good example is another spot out here is Bandwidth. Shout out to Willpower.
Shout out to Willpower.
That's I feel like that's like a great example of what it really feels like in a small pocket, like that's representative of like working in Atlanta.
Right.
Because I could go there and I could be in a room full of like other producers, and you know, typically you think, oh man, you know, I gotta show up, I gotta show out, and it's just this. It goes beyond competition. Like you're trying to like impress, to almost like keep people like out of the light. That's how some people may act. Here, that's not the case.
Right.
I could come in, room full of producers. Everybody's looking to see who can contribute what. If somebody's contributing to a record, and there's something that I could do that somebody else may not be able to do, there's no, I don't know. There's no tension at all. I could just come through. I could bring my bongo, I could bring my congas, I could bring all my instruments or whatever, and I could fit right in. And again, it's like a family affair. Everybody's having fun and doing what they do, you know. So
yeah. So shout out to all the creatives here in Atlanta. We greatly appreciate, for us who are transplants to Atlanta, how you have opened up your arms and opened up your city to welcome us. And just allowing us to fit in and just kind of really just be ourselves. I think that's critically important.
Indeed.
Yeah. So let's talk about your music. Let's talk about how you incorporate your roots into your art and your creativity.
So I guess funny enough, and I get into these conversations often because like when I first started, I grew up. So aside from being a salsero, my dad was a b-boy as well.
Nice.
Right. So I feel like I grew up in a household that had like equal amounts of hip hop and salsa. So when the time came for me to actually perform, I don't know why it was like that. I would usually keep those things separate, you know. And the crazy thing is, like, even if you do the history on hip hop, obviously the presence of Puerto Ricans, you know, in hip hop, even whether it be b-boying, DJing, producing, rhyming, the culture has always been the cultures, even though they seem separate, have been together. When I was younger, I didn't really merge the two as much. So I love boom bap. So I grew up obviously listening to like Premier, Pete Rock, Large Professor, Dilla, you know, you name it. So it's like when it came to me getting into production, I was always like heavy on like sampling and the boom bap feel. It wasn't until, man, maybe like in the last, I'd say like 10 years that I like stepped away from just doing the things that I like because I just love listening to and started experimenting with different things. As far as merging what I do naturally into the music, like it probably has been maybe the last 3. Because again, I guess with me being in a place where like I just wanted to create what I loved, I never thought to take what I do naturally and put it into like the drum programming or you know, I guess just the creative process. But now it's just been so much simpler, like to find, well, I don't want to say find, but like maybe like create my own sound. And so half of what I do is pretty much like live recording. So and the great thing about it is that it's all rhythm based. So even if there's certain things that aren't traditional to what I play with salsa or mambo, even if I'm doing something on a record that's like bachata or cumbia or like some other style of like Latin like vibe, there's always still a way to make it all fit, and it's like not there's no struggle like to actually like make the sound what it is because it just comes out naturally. So for me, finally, I guess like bridging what I've done with performing with salsa and then producing hip hop, it just fits. It just fits. So
That's what's up. So was there a reason why you kept them separate in the beginning?
So I guess I could admit, and I mean, I feel like a lot of us kind of have similar stories where you grow up surrounded by ideas, you know, you grow up surrounded by, I guess, like schools of thought, and you don't necessarily like question, you know, like the things you were like raised around. So I can't say that even though the cultures were, as far as like hip hop and salsa, like we're always like present around each other.
Right.
There was still separation, you know. So even though like I grew up in Lorraine, around 30th and Globe, this was like prior to like I guess like the era of I guess like when drugs really hit, when the hood was like not the hood per se. It was just like a big community. Everybody was like side by side, shoulder to shoulder with. And I feel like once certain aspects of either like segregation or separation with either like classism or social status or whatever, like everybody kind of like ended up staying to their own pocket. So when it did come to, I guess, the cultures being what they were, salsa was always salsa. Like the Puerto Rican culture was always like very tight knit, family oriented. So it was like there wasn't really a whole lot of other things coming into.
Right.
Even though my dad was a b-boy, like the hip hop scene ended up being still kind of like its own thing too. So even though we shared the same space in terms of like community, when stuff was popping and stuff was going on, like it was always its own thing. So when I did get into, I feel like that's something that kind of like affected me like mentally, not necessarily in a bad way. I think it just was what it was at the time. So like if I'm thinking of hip hop, that's all I'm thinking. I'm thinking of like breaking, I'm thinking of MCing, I'm thinking of producing, DJing, you know, graffiti, all this stuff. So I'm just thinking about like exclusively like the culture itself. So I never thought to just take stuff that I've grown up in to like infuse or like incorporate. it wasn't until I got older, I'm like, man, like it really ain't no rules, man. Like, you know, there's no, you know, there's really no point like to keep my stuff, you know, boxed in. I mean, and I guess really with the journey of music and just life in general, it's like there's so many other parts. There's so many other things like that are incorporated that make life what it is. So I'm like, man, like why not really like take all of these things and put them together and let it be more of representation of like, you know, what I've experienced, what I've grown up in. That, I mean, that's one thing that's really been on my heart even now these days, where it's like I want to make sure if there's anything that could be shared with people, you know, like I wanted to come from like an organic place of like if there's like any cultural impacts that I could share. Like I want this stuff to translate over, you know. I don't want it to just be sounds. I don't want it to just be, yo, I do this style of whatever. I do, you know, this is my production style. Or like this is my aim. Like I want to let the music be what it's gonna be, you know. Right. And like if I'm bonding with anybody, you know, I guess I just want like that same type of like heart and character to translate over.
Man, that's profound.
It's life, man.
It's life. Man, it's life. And even in just what you were speaking of, I can tell that you're one who goes back and you kind of study the history. Yeah. Right? Because you started naming the core elements of hip hop. Yeah. And I don't know if most people even know the core, because when you started, you was like, yeah, b-boy and MCing and graffiti. I was like, whoa, yeah, he knows the roots of hip hop. And not many people kind of go back and really study how it got started and how that kind of influences what they do today. Musically.
Yeah. And I mean, I could definitely, I guess give credit like to my dad on that one. And for, I don't know, some may have known his name, some not, but he goes by Miguel Mambo de Leon. So he's done a lot, just period, not just in my life, but as far as just as a musician. So where I guess you could say where I cut my teeth at in terms of really getting into performing, I used to live in Kansas City, Missouri. Okay. So anybody who's from Kansas City, Missouri, or even if they from Wyandotte, KCK, shout out to the dot. Yeah.
Like I used to live in St. Louis.
Okay, yeah. You know, so anybody who's from the Midwest, specifically like the KC area, like that has a history of its own when it comes to like jazz history, from the Moulton Brothers, Charlie Parker, Hootie McShann, who is it? Bobby Watson. I mean, there's a ton, you know, and like so being there, having an appreciation for the history of the Kansas City jazz scene, and just being under the mentorship and like the tutelage of my pops, like even with salsa, like he made sure that I knew the history from like the 50s and 60s. One of his mentors, or his main mentor, was Tito Puente. So from having like mentors like that and just the scene that he performed in, it was almost like it was just a natural thing for me to want to know the roots of something, or to want to know like where things like originated from. And it's like I feel like for me personally, I wouldn't be able to completely like fully appreciate not just what I was getting into, but like what I'm almost like a torchbearer of, you know. So it's like, other than just the joy of making music, if people are looking to learn and learn properly, like it's almost my duty as well to try and help educate, or to try and help at least give a historical view to say, hey, you really enjoy, you know, X, Y, Z, or whatever style of music you play. Well, I don't know if you knew, but you know, you could just go back into the history, give people more appreciation so they can see like they're connected to more than just a piece of equipment. You know, they're connected to just more than just what's going on currently. You know, there's like a whole historicity of information spanning back before I was even born, you know, that I'm still connected to in some type of way, you know, and I'm paying it forward to still either educate or share these experiences for the next generation to come, you know, so.
Wow. That's yeah. Yeah, I mean, man, everybody who is going to be watching this, I think the biggest thing that they're going to pick up on, and this is a question I'm going to ask you, is just the appreciation for music. the appreciation and the love for music. So the question is, do you think that's something that is missing in today's music? Is the appreciation and the love for music?
I would say yes and no.
Okay.
I would say yes because for what it's worth, where people are currently, wherever they are, however long ago they got started, I guess whoever their inspirations were, I think, people who appreciate things like they appreciate it from whatever vantage point they started off at, you know. So there could be somebody who, you know, the kids is here in Atlanta who like they fell in love with the trap scene, you know, trap music, and they fell in love with the genre and what it takes to actually make the music itself. Just because they might be in that one style, or somebody up in like New York grew up like with boom bap, you know, or somebody in Detroit grew up like listening to like Dilla or House Shoes, or you know, anyone else, you know, from any other state, you know, grew up listening to whoever it was that was like their pinnacle in view of like what music was going to be like for them, you know. They appreciate as much as they can from that point. So I would say to the point of at least acknowledging, you know, that everybody has like different varying levels of like what they appreciate or why they appreciate something. I at least want to acknowledge that, because I know sometimes some of my friends point out like the old head hip hopper in me, where I could say something. It's like, man,
you're an old head. You're like an old head,
like, man. You sound like an old man that's not like, you know, like giving at least like credit or appreciation to like where somebody else is at in their journey. Because I used to have moments where I was like kind of that guy, you know, and I didn't appreciate things for what they were. So on the yes end, I would say yes, there's some varying levels of appreciation, and I know that was somewhat of a long answer, but
no, that was perfect.
In the terms of no, I would say no, because there's still a very large group of people who they see what they could get out of it. Like there's really nothing to put themselves into other than the fact that it's like there's fame or the appearance of fame, especially these days being online. What do people call it these days? Like either the term clout chasing.
Yeah, clout chasing.
You know, or I'm sure there's other terms that, you know, people would use, but some people do it for money. Some people do it for fame. Some people do it for like the popularity. Some people ain't even really doing it. They just doing enough to make it look like they're doing something.
Make it look, the perception that they're doing something.
The perception of, some people do it because they're addicted to, you know, wanting to be followed, wanting to be revered, wanting to be shown some level of like respect or love. And it's not, I guess me saying all of that is just to say like there's a lot that's just not connected to anything. Selfishness maybe. Just more of like a self-serving desire to want to like, I don't know, like present a term of like, or view of like purpose. Because I mean, myself included, like everybody wants to be a part of like something bigger, something greater. Everyone wants to, I guess at the root, they either want to belong or fulfill a purpose, you know, or have a calling, if you will, to be living in, you know. It's just some are surrounded by some to educate, to give love, to show them, whether it be ropes or like kind of like to help be as a guide, like to lead people, and others it's just, I mean, again, it's the era that we live in, you know. So some people could just see something online and want to emulate that, and it looks appeasing. It looks like something that would like be very fitting. So it's like, what do they do, you know?
Right.
And
Wow.
you know, they jump into that for that.
Right.
But I mean, again, like, not to sound like the old head, but from an area of appreciation for me, like I'm glad I'm glad I grew up the way I grew up. I'm glad that I had access to, I guess, culturally relevant like learnings, things that I was able to get into at a younger age. So one of the things I'm just grateful for is I'm I, I'm glad that I was able to grow up around people who cared enough, you know, to not even just educate me, but to make effort to allow me to be in an experience, like to have experience and be part of an experience. You know, like I feel like for whatever it was worth, like my dad was proactive in that sense to say, hey, you know, you could be into anything you want to be. Let me at least give you some of where you come from,
Right.
you know. So I mean, he did that with breaking. He was the first person to teach me how to spin on my head. You know, to break out the cardboard, or like, you know.
Yes.
He had me training pretty much with a sock on my hand, like doing like the hand spins and everything. So whether it been him, you know.
Man, wait, I'm sorry. Look, man. I know most of y'all probably don't even know, but that was the time back in the day when you get the sock with the sock in your hand, you trying to do the spins on the cardboard. Oh my goodness,
dude! And when you finally hit it, like, but I mean that kind of like speaks to the point, you know, like you know about that, you can relate to that. There was something, even if you were in a different area of the U.S. That era and just that culture like transcended just where it originated from,
right.
You know. My dad wanted to make sure that I was experiencing that, you know, when I got older.
That's what's up.
And the time came to get involved in music, it was the same thing. Like I didn't even realize what he was doing. He would always take me to his rehearsals. He would always take me to the shows. Sometimes I'd be falling asleep in the sound booth during gig nights. Like I wasn't even of age to be in the clubs or like in the discotheques or whatever, but I'm still, because I was his son, like they gave me the pass and I was able to just, you know, experience everything. Right. So like all of that meant something. All of that poured into me in some way, shape, or form. And shout out to like all the musicians that I like even grew up playing like side by side with and performing side by side with, because like they all contributed something like to my life. Like all of them like contributed to me understanding history, whether it been salsa, whether it been even prior to that Afro-Cuban jazz, you know, from learning things like clave, the difference between like 3/2 clave to 2/3, and the roots of the drum, like going all the way back to like the continent of Africa. Like there's a lot of different styles of what, you know, I grew up playing that reflect so much before me. Even when mambo started or salsa started, stuff was still very prominent and happening in life well before that culminated in, you know, even of that like becoming something at all, you know. And anyhow, so I don't go off on a rabbit trail, just history. Everything contributes to something, you know, at some point. I really want to do my part to carry on. If there is any tradition in teaching or making myself available, like for other people to experience something other than just what you see at face value for the moment. Right. I definitely want to do my part, you know, and pour into others, you know, and pay forward.
Man, that's what's up. Man, shout out to Anatome's dad, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, for being a huge inspiration and guide just in your life, brother. Shout out to all dads that's doing that.
Yes.
But specifically at this moment, Anatome's dad, for just kind of just even showing you and putting you in positions and places and things that were going to influence you to this day.
Yeah.
So even in saying that, so personally, what were some of your sacrifices or challenges that you had to face or deal with in order to be in this particular music industry?
That's an excellent question, and in part, I feel like it's almost like an ongoing question, or it's an ongoing answer to the question. I'll put it that way, because I've definitely been in different seasons where things were great and flourishing, where like I'm gigging like 2 and 3 times a week. You know, there's been multiple times that I've done, I guess, music as a full-time occupation. And sometimes I had to like take a step back and do what I had to do and pick out, just like a 9 to 5 to take care of home, take care of bills, whether it be as a single person, now as a married person. I got married March 4th, 2015. So going from the transition of like being a single musician, doing what you got to do. Sometimes you got to make moves where you like on that hustle diet. For anybody who knows, like, you spending like $5 like at the bodega or like the wherever you getting what you got.
You got it.
You making a loaf of bread stretch for the week. You eating oatmeal in the morning and ramen
at night.
See, I ain't even have to finish. Like, you already know. So yes, I've experienced those days. There's been some days where like, man, even if it was in a short period of time, like I really didn't have a place to call home. Living on the road, or just doing whatever it was that I had to do. I don't necessarily have like I guess the most heavy-hearted stories per se in terms of like, people say, man, I've been couch surfing, I was sleeping in the box, or like,
right.
What was it, man? And I mean, and I'm not saying that to like make fun of it, because there's some stories, that some people like dealt with like tremendous struggle to get where they are, and some not. So I mean, the story is different for everybody, but I mentioned marriage because that was probably like one of the more difficult things in transitioning for me, just because like I'm not just trying to make my life fit, like it's a completely new life.
Completely new.
Exactly.
Experience.
Like I'm not trying to like take what I used to do and make it fit in what I'm doing currently.
Right.
It's just it's a new ball game. Like, you're looking to see like what life is shaping out to be together, Shout out to my wife, because she's been like definitely a huge support. Because I mean, I've definitely seen myself at times like as a chronic overthinker, and sometimes I've been my own like worst enemy. Really, just being completely honest. Since we're talking about like struggle and stuff, where like I would think myself out of things. If I didn't have like my wife and like the circle of people who've been around me, man, I'd probably be living in my head way more than I care to admit, But even though the transitioning was like difficult, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be in totality, because, man, my wife just been like mad supportive, to just what I do, how I do. Sometimes it could be like late night, early morning studio sessions, to I could just be gone for, days at a time, doing what I need to do. But, our foundation at the crib is love. I support her as well. She's like going for her master's right now.
Hey, that's what's up.
And that could be daunting as well for her, and we have a 1-year-old, So we're like taking time, like balancing, just time doing what it is, not so much like what we want to do per se, but like doing what we're doing because we know it's going to impact our family, as well. So yeah, now I'm definitely in a different space, especially this year, probably like since the summer. That's all I've been focusing on, really. It's just been, music and cultivating and building relationships and doing what I can. I mean, she sees the importance in that. So yeah, she's just been supporting me like every step of the way, man. So
yeah,
I know not everybody has that. So
I know I was just getting ready to say that.
I gotta give credit.
Getting ready to say that because not everybody has that support to help them carry, because sometimes we need it, right? So my wife is super supportive of the things that she just sent me a text the other day, all capital letters, "I'm your biggest fan," right? And so that just makes you feel so much appreciative, because she realizes the dreams that I personally have, and I recognize the dreams that she has. And so we kind of try to figure out ways to support each other more through those things. Like, honestly, for anybody watching, I think this is the first time I mentioned this in any of these episodes, is the fact that I had to convince my wife to allow me to set up the studio in our house. Because our house, your home is your personal living space, right?
Great point.
And, she was like, no, because this is our home. This is where we live. And we don't want people just coming in to kind of invade that. Yeah. But I was super just excited when she thought about it. She said, "You know what? I'm going to support you through that."
That's huge.
And I was like, oh man, thank you so much.
Because I have my own space, you know, and shout out to your wife.
Shout out to all. Yeah, shout out to all.
Shout out to all supportive wives.
Say all supportive wives.
Yes. all supportive significant others. Yeah, I mean, because you're right. Like, I mean, your home is your place, whether you want to say your sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
It's your place of living.
Mm-hmm.
Like, anything and everything personal is here. Like, last thing you want to do is like bring people, because you know how it is. I mean, I'm sure you've met plenty of people where it's like on the surface things look very professional,
Mm-hmm.
but as soon as they come around and they get to a certain level of comfort with you, they might drop, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever level of, I don't know, like facade or whatever it was that they were trying to portray to get whatever they wanted to get out of you.
Mm-hmm.
When they get comfortable, like, you start seeing a little more of the real, you know.
Yeah.
Having discernment on things like that is definitely important, especially when you're talking about bringing people around family. I mean, because I have opened up my home before, like, to doing things with people,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And don't get me wrong, like, it's not like I had like any horror stories or anything of like having like the wrong type of people around, but you do begin to respect and appreciate more the boundaries that you do set up, because like,
You got that right.
not everybody needs to be, you know, around like that. And when you do open up your home, sometimes it can throw things off,
Mm-hmm.
you know, specifically. So yeah, that's why I say, like, shout out to her, you know, because my wife does the same thing, you know. Before any moves are made, we discuss some things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and she's like, well, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Or, I personally don't feel like I want this around our son or that around,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So, but
Yeah, you have to be very protective and use discernment in a lot of situations. Now, I never had any of those things happen yet where someone came in with maybe ulterior motives or were seeking something different by putting on a facade. I mean, but then again, I got 2 kids who are black belts. I got a wife who is like,
man,
I don't even know what belt level she is, but they all took Taekwondo, right? I'm the only one who's still a white belt.
Oh.
In the in the family.
Well, it's still a family affair.
It's a family affair, right? And so, yeah, anybody who's watching, you come on the show, just know that we, you know,
y'all get down.
We in there, you know what I'm saying? Like, not me per se, but I got, you know, family who.
Body
but anyway. So let's talk about, what advice would you have for anyone coming into this music industry?
That's always probably like one of the best questions to ask. There's so many things that I can't say, but if there was some advice, the advice today, what would I give? So I would say, in terms of when we present ourselves, or rather when a situation presents itself for us to be involved in, 9 times out of 10, I feel like typically when people are pursuing something or they want to be somewhere in life, they immediately look at a situation and say, what can I get out of it? Like, what's going to benefit me? And a lot of times I feel like, I mean, I can only speak like really like from a position of being like a creative, I feel a lot of times we end up shooting ourselves in the foot when we go into a situation thinking like that, because we get this like tunnel vision where it's like we're looking towards a goal, or we're looking towards like attaining a certain thing, and we're not paying attention to everything that's happening in between. Like, we end up overlooking sometimes like some of the most important, valuable things, because we step into a situation looking to see what we can get up out of there. Like, and that's just not the attitude to have. Like, that's not the mindset to have, because I mean that affects a lot of other things. I mean, another bit of I guess advice I was gonna give was that, like, and this is something that I've learned over the years, that your character, beyond whatever talent you have, whatever skill you have, man, I don't care if I play like 20 instruments and I was like, you know, I don't know, like just this ahead of his time type musician. It doesn't matter like what skills I possess. If I don't know how to treat people, if I don't know how to hold conversation or converse with people, if I don't know how to respect people, or if I don't know how to give love. Like if I'm over here like trying to match like character issues just because I got the skill, and I think that the skill can carry me over, and like I'm not going to be interacting with like there's really nothing that I'd be able to do.
Right.
There's nowhere that I could really go. So I mean, in short, advice, just I would say this because this is that time now. So, your character means more than anything when it comes to trying to work with people in the industry, even if it just came to like just going about things with your own family. Like character means more than what you think you can gain, and sometimes character means more than what you can give. Because I mean, the biggest thing and the best thing that you could give to anybody is of yourself. You're not just like giving a service. You really are giving of yourself. So just be mindful. Be mindful of that. Care for yourself and care for those around you. Because like really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what opportunities you get. It doesn't matter what accolades, what plaques. As a human being, like if you can't carry yourself in a manner, man, that's going to actually elevate those around you and bring value even more so to those that you work with and live around. Like, I mean, what are we doing?
Right.
So yeah,
No, that's truth, man. Being a jerk butt is not going to get you in places where you think you're gonna.
Nah, you could be the most. You could be the most. I mean, I've heard stories. I'm not gonna throw any names out there, but for stories that I've heard, like man, some people are like phenomenal artists, phenomenal musicians, phenomenal producers. I mean, people were like sought out who got like legacy and like, their presence is of legend. But if you're a jerk, I mean, I feel like the only time somebody's really gonna reach out to you is because they want whatever clout's attached to your name to elevate, whatever. But if that's all the value you have, like you're only gonna attract people who's gonna come, get what they can and leave. But I mean, really having a presence or state of mind, state of being, presence of soul even, that's going to keep longevity and like a real sense of legacy are those who really care for those around them.
That's
so
right.
That's what I'm trying to, I'm trying to keep that going.
Yeah, and I sense that from the interaction that we've had, that is the persona of Anatome, and so for those of you who are in the Atlanta area, you get a chance to run into this brother, man. You're gonna kind of experience the same thing as well.
Indeed.
And man, it's been a pleasure, brother. We've had a great conversation, so many gems, so many things that I'm sure that anybody who's coming back to watch this is going to pick up on. Yeah, man, it's been great having you on the show, man.
Man, it's been a blessing. I had no idea, from the time meeting you at Patchwork, something like this would like come about. But again, it's been a blessing, a privilege, and an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
No doubt, man. So last thing, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me anywhere. No, let me be more specific. I'm just being silly.
You can find them at the grocery store, Publix,
on wherever. Anatome 3 at ANATOME 3 at ANATOME 3. That's on Instagram, Twitter. My name is Michael De Leon. You can find me on Facebook there as well. But typically, if I connect with anybody, it's on IG or Twitter. So that's where you can find me.
That's right. One more time, man. Appreciate it, man. Thank you,
man. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are out. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of We Create Music. You can always catch us every Saturday at www.wecreatemusic.tv. Thanks for tuning in. Look forward to next time. We're out.